Every year, at the end of Scaling Up, we do something called the wrap. And the wrap is not asking someone to spend 10 minutes talking about what all of you have just heard over the last day and a half. We don't want a summary of the conference. We want to know what the person's impressions are of what they've just learned over the last day and a half. And this is the third year, or the third time, because of course we didn't do it during the pandemic when we were virtual conference, but I'm always trying to invite a young person to come and provide the wrap. Last year, you might remember, those of you who were here, we had two students from local universities. I can't remember if it was Carleton and Ottawa U, but they were also working on the Hill as parliamentary interns. And one of the comments they made in their wrap was, we can't believe that we're not hearing anything about this because we work on the Hill. So this time we have Aish Mann, who's come to us all the way from Vancouver. Is a graduate student in Surrey, British Columbia. And before I get into asking her any questions, I'm just going to ask you to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Aish.
Thank you, Jeff. So I'm Aish from Vancouver. Originally, I am from Malaysia. So I moved to Canada to come to school. I wear a lot of different hats. So I'm a student. I also volunteer with two non-governmental organizations to promote climate education among the youth in the US. And I also work with Threading Change. It's a youth organization that works on specifically finding new life for our textiles. I also have been a journalist before back home. I used to work on promoting sustainable tourism to the Bornean region of Malaysia, and I'm originally from Kuala Lumpur, the capital city.
Actually, Aish mentioned she's a former journalist. One of the things she enjoys about Canada is when she was a former journalist in Malaysia, she soon found out that she wasn't allowed to speak her mind. So that's what she likes about the fact that she's now living in Canada. So we hope that when she graduates, she stays here. So listen, it seems like a long time ago yesterday morning when we heard Jim Lane get up and say the future is zero. So we've had lots of information since then. But before we get into any specifics, just what are your big thoughts, Aish, about what you've heard? I mean, I know, how many pages of notes have you taken anyway?
I have 65 pages over here. Because the notebook can keep track, so yes. A lot of different things that sort of stand out to me. Again, to reiterate the students from last year, I am in a sustainability graduate business program in Vancouver. I have not heard much about the bioeconomy. We hear a lot about the clean energy sector, but just the specifics and the details not discussed in class, and we're just not really hearing it. Some of the things that stand out for me from the conference, effective forest management, policy certainty, and the opportunity, just the amount of opportunity that exists. And I can't believe that, we are not hearing about it. So from today is agricultural and forestry collaboration. That's one of my key takeaways today.
Were there any, I know that you've been taking notes and sitting there for the last day and a half, were there any aha moments? I just can't believe that, or you've got the president of the BC Council of Forest Industry sitting here in the audience. Maybe you're going to go and get a job with her. I don't know whether you would work in forestry, but
I have actually questions for you.
Okay,
come look
well,
for
go
you
ahead.
later.
Yeah.
But aha moments, I feel like every panel had an aha moment because there's just so much opportunity. One of the things that I found very interesting from yesterday that's still in my head was how we've been encouraged to now start engaging with the Poly-F government, and being a young person and social media being an echo chamber, we're very polarized, and there's just, especially around BC, there's just this thing, perception that if the Conservatives come into place, that's the end of everything, and that's it. We can't really do anything. And so it was very refreshing to understand that we can actually look at finding middle ground and start these talks now. And so yeah.
Aish and I, we met back in February at a conference that Globe organizes every second year, on finance. And I was so impressed with the questions that she was asking from the audience that's why I approached her and said, listen, I have this conference called Scaling Up, and we do this thing at the end called the Wrap, and would you be interested in doing it? And lo and behold, here she is. But one of the things that she talked to me about was, as a foreign student, she feels that there's a huge resource there that Canada is not tapping into. And could you just talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. So I have classmates who are graduate, students. And we have robust discussions that we look at global policies. I've got classmates from Trinidad and Tobago, Mexico, Colombia. These people have master's degrees and double engineering degrees working at bakeries and restaurants because there is just no conversion. So I was talking to Scott from Solar Biotech earlier, yesterday, and he was like, we have this talent gap, and Ontario Genomics talked about it as well yesterday, that there's this talent gap that, we cannot find the people to solve these problems, especially the technical ones, and I'm like, I've got people in my classroom that could probably work on this, and I cannot believe that, there's this thing that just because you're from overseas, you don't have Canadian experience, that your skills don't apply. And when you ask them what Canadian experience entails, it's, oh yeah, go work at a grocery store, and that will be Canadian experience, and that will make you valid for the job market here. It just doesn't make sense.
Well, your experience is it's not just foreign students, actually. There's lots of adults, or not, well, obviously you're an adult, but older people who are having that same frustration in coming to Canada and not being able to find jobs in their chosen profession. But based on what you've heard here over the last day and a half, has it made you optimistic? Has it made you pessimistic? Have you been incredibly frustrated because you hear all this stuff and somehow Canada, you've heard what's going on in Finland and Spain and the US and so on. So what are your thoughts there?
So I'll give you a perspective of, before I came to Canada, the kind of perception that Canada held was that this is a country that people know how to do the right thing. And they get after it, they make laws, and they're the most accepted sort of people, and they're looking at education and innovation. But this conference is specifically, and also the other conferences across the states and Canada that I've been to, I realize that there's just so much to be done, and it's surprising to me that there are no-brainer solutions, and we're not really doing that. So to answer your question, it's mostly frustration, really, that, I think we can do better. And I'm here to help with that.
Okay,
Yeah.
Great. Well, we don't have a lot of time left, and, I have to thank actually all of the speakers and moderators and so on that were able to finish on time. Mm-hmm. But maybe you have a few last words or last thoughts that you'd like to offer to the audience, and other than putting yourself out there as a potential hire. Yeah. And I'm interested, of course, as a Canadian, I think we're spoiled because I was born in what is now called Thunder Bay, Fort William. Nobody knows where that is anymore, but and we are so blessed with 348 million hectares of forest and 60 million hectares of ag land, and we've got all this municipal organic waste that can no longer be landfilled, and it just seems counterintuitive that we're not taking more advantage of it. But I think we sort of rest on our laurels because we've got uranium, and we've got potash, and we've got hydroelectric power, and so on. So I'm not quite sure if that's a question. I'm probably expressing my own frustration. And maybe I should ask you a little bit about Malaysia. I mean, what's happening, if anything, in Southeast Asia in the bioeconomy?
So the biggest agricultural sector in Malaysia is palm oil plantations. Recently, they're trying to make it more sustainable, but the plantation practices itself cannot get certifications because of the labor practices, specifically in Malaysia. Indonesia and Malaysia account for 85% of the global demand for palm oil, and palm oil is in biofuels, it's in your food and your makeup, and it's everywhere. And it's just very interesting to see just how lax those policies are, and land being deforested to make more space for the palm oil. But I kind of want to rope back into a little bit more of what we talked about in the conference over here, specifically with the IRA. Another resource that I want to point everybody's attention to is the youth capital that Canada has. There are about 10.13 million youth in Canada right now, ages 15 to 35. And recently, the IRA announced the American Climate Corps, which is going to put tens of thousands of youth in climate jobs and opportunities. And I am also part of this youth network through Climate Sustainability Leadership. And we're asking Canada to do the same because, you know, we're comparing how IRA is moving forward with creating all of these solutions. So I think Canada has an opportunity to do that. I think industry, the way that you can sort of come in is also invest in your youth capital, I think, because, you know, there is this demand, and obviously young people, you know, we're passionate, we're not jaded yet, but we definitely need some sort of leadership and mentorship, and just like what, Jeff, you're doing for me right now, you know, I wish we could do this on a bigger scale. And one of the themes for Globe earlier this year was intergenerational collaboration. And so I think that's that opportunity, because we are the future. We are the future of the bioeconomy, the industry, and we're going to take it forward. And I want to, you know, remind everyone to sort of think of that and think how you can engage the youth to bring that forward. Last point, if I may. This is more big picture, and just want to remind and, you know, bring your attention to something that comes from my experience coming from the Global South. We went into a lot of technicalities here, and, you know, I appreciate just the work everybody is doing, but I just want to bring your attention to what the implications are, because we're talking about US politics and, you know, Canadian politics and the decisions that you make in the industry, but remember that the decisions that you make are not just North America or your country centric. The decisions you make in these rooms affect my home back home, because we have floods. Sorry, it's a little emotional. I pray that you guys don't have to feel what it's like knowing or fearing that tomorrow you may not have your house, that it might be underwater, you know? So please remember that as you know, take your work and you go back to the offices, that this is about millions and billions of lives that you're talking about, not just in your countries, but in the Global South. Thank you.